Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Dalid of Masechta Pesachim. We're going to continue talking about Havdala. Sounds good to me, right? I don't know. Sounds cool. Anybody disagree? Probably not. So let's go weiter. We ended off the Daf yesterday, Daf Kuf Gimel, with a dialogue between Rav Yaakov Bar Abba and Rava. The Rava said, he was making Havdala, and he said, "Amavda ben kodesh l'cho, ben or l'choshech, ben yisrael l'am, ben yom hashvil ha'sheshes me'amaise." And Rav Yaakov Bar Abba, he says, how come all these inyanim? So Rava said, well, because Rabbi Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Hoshaya, that if you're going to do, the lowest number of these variations, so don't do less than 3. And if you're going to do a lot of them, so don't do more than 7. So now Rabbi Yaakov Bar Abba responds to Rava. He says, "But v'hamar, I'm at the top of Kuf Daled Amud Aleph, lo tlasa amar v'lo sheva amar." But he points out to Rava that you didn't do, if you're going to do the least amount, then you should have done 3. If you're going to do the most amount, you should have done 7. You did 4. What's 4? Omle Ibra. So Rava says you're correct. However, ben yom hashvil ha'sheshes me'amaise me'ein chasimohi. However, Rava points out it's really 3, because the last one, ben yom hashvil ha'sheshes me'amaise, so that is really me'ein chasima. Now, what's the bracha that we see at the end of Havdala? Baruch atah Hashem, hamavda mikodesh l'cho. He who makes a separation between that which is holy and that which is mundane. So when we say ben yom hashvi l'sheshes me'amaisa, between the day 7 Shabbos and the rest of the days of the week, that is ki'ilu, it's related to the actual bracha that we make at the end, which is amavda ben kodesh l'cho. So therefore, Rav is pointing out that the last one, ben yom hashvi l'sheshes me'amaisa, doesn't actually count as one of the 3 or 7, and therefore you have hamavda ben kodesh l'cho, ben or l'choshech, ben yisrael l'amim. So those are the 3 Havdalas, and then the last one of Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Me'amaisa is just Ki'ilu, to be Yotzezan, with making a bracha at the end, Me'ein Chasimasa. Right? So he says, Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Me'amaisa Me'ein Chasimahi is already sort of having something similar to the bracha at the end of the bracha. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that Taka, when you make a bracha, you want to have sort of like a summary almost, or no, not a summary, but something at the end of the bracha related to the actual bracha that you're going to make, which is why at the end we say Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Me'amaisa Ufum B'Disai Amri Me'ein Psichason Samuch L'Chasimason. And in Pumpedisa, which is interesting because Rav Yehuda, who was, as far as I know, he was the original Rosh Hashiva of Pumpedisa, he just quoted Shmuel as saying that you want to have Kein Chasimason Samuch L'Chasimason. And now, apparently in Pumpedisa, which is where Rav Yehuda was the Rosh Hashiva, he said that you want Me'ein Psichason Samuch L'Chasimason, i.e. at the beginning of the bracha, at the close to the end of the bracha, you can have something related to the beginning of the bracha. Okay, my benai, what's the nafkamina between having something similar to the end of the bracha versus something similar to the beginning of the bracha? So benai Yom Tiv Shechalios Achar Shabbos. The nafkamina is going to be when you have Yom Tiv on a Sunday. How come? Tichas minon bein kodesh lekodesh. That at the end of that Havdalah we're going to say Baruch atah Hashem amavda ben kodesh lekodesh, which means that if you say that you want something me'ein chasimason, samuch l'chasimason, that you want something similar to the actual bracha that you're going to make at the end, which is amavda ben kodesh lekodesh, so you're going to want to have something at the end of the bracha related to different types of kedusha. Right? So mandamar me'ein psichason samuch l'chasimason, lo ba'ay l'meimar ben kedusha Shabbos l'kedusha Yom Tov Havdalta. So if you say that at the end of the bracha you want to have something similar to like at the beginning of the bracha, well, in that case, at the beginning of the bracha, you're just talking about different kinds of Havdalas. So you don't need to add a note about Ben Kedushas Shabbos Kedushas Yom Tov Havdalta. Because even though you're going to say at the end of the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Hamavda mikodesh l'kodesh. You don't necessarily in the body of the bracha have to have anything about kodesh and kodesh. However, but if you're going to say that you do want in the body of the bracha to have something relating to the actual bracha that you're going to make at the end, which is Hamavda mikodesh l'kodesh, well then, by Lememar, you're going to want to add into the body of the bracha, ben kedusha Shabbos l'kedusha Yom Tov Havdalta, that you also make a hevdol, a differentiation between the kedusha of Shabbos and the kedusha of Yom Tov. You're going to want to add that into the body of the text. If you say that you want to have me'ein chasimason, samuch l'chasimason. Gufa, says the Gemara, we said earlier, Amar Belazar, Amar Be'oshaya. Says Belazar, the name of Be'oshaya, Apoches lo yivchos mishalosh ve'amosif lo yosef al sheva. If you want to have sort of the least number of descriptors of, different kinds of Havdalas, of differentiations, so don't do less than 3. And if you want to have a lot, that's great, but don't do more than 7. Meisvei, we have a kasha. Omer Havdalas b'motzoi Shabbosos b'motzoi Yom Tovim. When do we say Havdalah? Motzei Shabbos we say Havdalah. Motzei Yom Tov. Uv'motzoi Yom HaKippurim. Also after Yom Kippur, Motzoi Shabbos l'Yom Tov. Also if you have Yom Tov on a Sunday, so you're gonna on Motzei Shabbos, between Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're gonna say a Havdalah. Uv'motzoi Yom Tov l'chulu shamoed. Also on Motzei Yom Tov when it's going into Chol HaMoed. In all these situations we say a Havdalah. Aval Motzei Yom Tov l'Shabbos. However, you don't make a Havdalah when Friday is Yom Tov, and then obviously that's going into Shabbos. You don't make a Havdalah between Yom Tov and Shabbos. And as the Rashbam points out, because going back to our metaphor with the king and the duke, so yes, when you have Shabbos going into Yom Tov, so you want to escort out the king and then welcome the duke. But when you have the duke leaving and the king is coming, don't worry about the duke right now. Only focus on the king. And therefore, you're not going to make a Havdalah between Yom Tov and Shabbos. Harogil Omer Harbe V'she'enu Rogil Omer Achas. And that, my friends, is the question. That if, Harogil, what does Rogil mean? Regular? Somebody knows what he's doing. Maybe somebody who wants to. I don't know. But he says a lot of brachas. But somebody who's not Rogil, who's not regular, so he just says one bracha. He just makes one, not lots of brachas, but like these differentiators, between this and that. No, so what do we see? We see V'she'enu Rogil Omer Achas. He mentions just one of these differentiators, right? Ben Kodesh L'Chol, Ben Or L'Choshech, you'd only do one of them. Now, Rabbi Lazar said in the name of Rabbi Oshaya that if you want to do less, then that's great, but don't do less than 3. And yet over here we're saying if somebody is not Rogil, so you can do just one. The Gemara says Tanohi. So the Gemara says it's actually Machlokas Tanoim about whether or not you can do less than 3. Dam Rabbi Yochanan, B'non Shel Kedoshim Omer. Says Rabbi Yochanan that the B'non Shel Kedoshim, the son of the holy people, says Achas, that all you have to do is have one descriptor in Havdalah. V'nagwa Amdom Shalosh. But the minig is to say 3 descriptors, which is what we do l'maisa, right? Ben Kodesh L'Chol, Ben Or L'Choshech, Ben Yisrael Lo. We said already, Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheshes Me'maisa is already ki'ilu this ke'en chasimason thing. But we use 3 descriptors. Frakti Gemara, man niu B'non Shel Kedoshim. Who is B'non Shel Kedoshim? I'm sure everybody was thinking that. It's very curious, right? B'non Shel Kedoshim. Who in the world is that? Rabbi Menachem Bar Simoy. The answer is, B'non Shel Kedoshim is a reference to Rabbi Menachem Bar Simoy. Va'amai karulei B'non Shel Kedoshim. How come they give him such a distinguished name? The son of the holy people. T'lo estakel b'tzursa dezuza. He wouldn't look at money. Aha. Alright. I mean, it says, I guess, to the mint of the money, to the imprint of the money. I don't know. Is there an afkamina, you think? Very interesting. Maybe it has to do the afka with like the print of the money. What's printed on the money? Take, for example, the quarter in the United States. If I'm not mistaken, you have George Washington. So maybe if you look at although at least it used to be, I think. Then they did all those different states and stuff. Oh man, I don't even know the last time I saw a quarter, Lamaisa. But on money in general, you have, I guess, like people's faces. Maybe that's the point. He didn't even want to look at like sort of, maybe it was like a getchke. Like, to see he didn't want to be looking at some kind of, image, a created image, maybe like an avodah zarah type of inyan. I don't know. But that's why it was called Bunan Shel Kadoshim. He didn't look at money. All right. What about credit cards? Does credit cards count? I don't know. Shalach lu Rav Shmuel Bar Idi. Rav Shmuel Bar Idi sent Hananya Achi, my brother Hananya Omer. He says, Achas v'leisilch sakavasa. Hitaka says one descriptor, but then the halacha is not like him. Okay. Omer B'Yeshua ben Levi. Uwah. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Amavdu tzarich shomer mein avdalas hamuras b'Torah. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that when you're mentioning these different descriptors of different types of avdalos, so then you have to say havdal, these like differentiations that are listed in the Torah. For example, period. Okay, so that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi's opinion, that when you make all these different avdalos, ben this to that, ben that to this, so you're going to want to use examples that are found in the Torah. Meis, we have a kasha. Said the avdalos sayach. What are all these different havdalas? So Omer Amadlu bin Kodesh L'chol. Okay, we could find a source for that in the Torah. For example, the pasuk says in Vayikra L'havdu bin HaKodesh u'bin HaChol u'bin HaTomei u'bin HaTor, which we can see is also a different descriptor. Anyway, so all of the following, basically there are Torahs that you could, there are psukim in the Torah that you can find them in. So Amadlu bin Kodesh L'chol, bin Or L'choshech, bin Yisrael Lo'amim, ben Mashvil Sheshes Amaisa, ben Tomei L'Tor, ben Ayom L'Charava, ben Maim L'Yonim L'Maim Atachtonim, ben Kahanim L'Levim V'Yisraelim, B'Chosim B'Seder Breishis, and then the bracha that you make at the end is, you say like Baruch Soder Breishis or something. Alright. V'Acherim Omim, Acherim Takasei, Rabbi Yisrael. Of course, how could we mention Acherim without referencing the discussion that one of the first WhatsApp discussions that we had in all of Babylon Talmud with our holy chaver Rabbi Yisrael from Tekoa about Acherim. Rashi on Daf Tes of Masechta Shabbos, who mentions that Acherim is Reb Meir. Yotzer Breishis, that's what he says. Yotzer Breishis. Reb Yossi, Reb Yehuda Omer, Chosem Mekadesh Yisrael. Okay, makes the bracha of Mekadesh Yisrael. Okay, fine. Now getting back to our question, our goal over here. Why are we bringing this? We're bringing this because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said that all of these havdalas that we're mentioning are based on psukim in the Torah. Now here's the thing. V'em Isa, if that is correct, what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is saying, Ha ben ayam l'charava lo ksiva be havdala. We don't see in the Torah where it says that there's a differentiation between the sea and the dry land. So, if Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is correct that all the Havdalos can be found in the Torah, well, Ben Ayam L'Charava isn't found in the Torah. Sami Mikan Ben Ayam L'Charava. So we say, okay, fine, drop Ben Ayam L'Charava. Not so important. Get rid of it. Fine. Yach, if that's the case, Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Mea Maisa Nami. Well, one second. What about Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Mea Maisa? That's also not. We don't have a pasuk specifically in the Torah for that. So the Gemara says, Mein Chasimasahu. So we say, yeah, but as we said earlier, isn't actually one of the Havdalas. It's just Me'en Chasima. So it's okay that it doesn't have a reference in the Torah because it's not one of the Havdalas. But the Gemara says, one second. But they say, wait, but if you get rid of both Ben Ayam L'Charava and Ben Yom Hashvi L'Sheshes Me'amaiseh, well, if you count up how many Havdalas we have 6 now. Now, we had said that don't do less than 3, don't do more than 7. What's 6? So, Amir Kohanim Levim V'Yisraelim Trei Mile Ninu. When we said between that one of the Havdalas is Ben Kohanim Levim and Yisraelim, that's actually not one Havdalah, it's 2 Havdalas. Ben Levim Yisraelim, there is between Levis and Yisraelim. As it says, period, that it was at that time that the Eibishter separated out the tribe of Levi. So there's one distinction between Yisraelim and Levim, Ben Kohanim and Levim, and there's also a distinction between Kohanim and Levim. The pasuk says, Bnei Amram Aharon Moshe Vayavdala Aharon Lakdisho Kodesh Kodashim, that the Eibishter specifically separated out Aharon to make him like the Kohanim. So there's actually two distinctions over there when we're talking about Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. There is between the Yisraelim and the Levim, and between the Levim and the Kohanim. So now if we take a look again, so then we have 7 descriptors, and each one is based on Pesukim in the Torah. Weiter in Shas. Michtam Mai Chosin. So now what bracha do we make at the end of Havdala? Rav Amar Mekadesh Yisrael U'Shmuel Amar Mavdu Mikodesh L'chol. So Rav says at the end of Havdala, you say Mekadesh Yisrael, and of course, as we all know from the end of Havdala, Shmuel says Hamavdu Ben Kodesh L'chol. Lait Allah Abayi V'Temur Rav Yosef Ahod Rav Tana Mishmed Rav Yeshua Ben Chananya. So the Gemara says that Abaye would curse. Some Taka say that it was Rav Yosef who would curse. Ahod Rav Tana Mishmed Rav Yeshua Ben Levi. Mishmed Rav Yeshua Ben Chananya. That which Rav would teach in the name of Rav Yeshua Ben Chananya. What new? What does he say? That anybody who says both of them, Kilu, he makes the pshara, he takes the opinion of Rav and Shmuel, and he says Mekadesh Yisrael like Rav, and also Amavdu Mikodesh L'chol like Shmuel, Marichim Yomav V'Shnosav. So we extend his days and his years because he's doing both of the options. But so 1 second. So but V'Leisilch Sakavasa in Allah is not like Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. We don't do Mekadesh Yisrael Hamavdu Mikodesh L'chol. Of course, we do just Hamavdu Mikodesh L'chol. And Rav Yosef and Abai, for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure, they would talk a curse anybody who would do this, because we don't have 2 separate inyanim in one bracha as we learned to Masech the brachas. Ula ikla Pumbedisa. Ula visited Pumbedisa. What do you guys think? You think that this was the time when he visited Pumbedisa and ate all those dates and said, wow, it's unbelievable that anybody can learn any Torah around here when they have all these dates for so cheap and they're going to make you sick? You think that it was that same time that we're talking about now? What do you guys think? We should be able to have like a poll, kind of like on Instagram stories. Maybe podcasts can have or videos have a poll, and you can press what you think, if you think it was the time that he ate the dates or not. Ula visited Pumbedisa. Amrle Rav Yehuda le Rav Yitzchak Brei. Rav Yehuda said to his son Rav Yitzchak, Zil amte le kalkola de peri. Go and bring for Ula some dates. Maybe these were the dates. Lavdavka dates, but kilu fruits. But maybe it was dates. V'chazi eichi avdil. And then that's really just a ploy, so that you can see how he makes Havdala. Right? Rav Yehuda said to his son Rav Yitzchak, why don't you go take these fruits, bring them to Ula, and really just bring them there so that you have an excuse to go there, and then you can see how he makes Havdala. Lo azal lemaise, Rav Yitzchak didn't go. What did he do? Shadule le Abaye. Instead he sent Abaye. That's really interesting, right? Of course it is. That you see that Abaye overlapped with Rav Yehuda. That's amazing. Because Rav Yehuda, in my mind, he was the first Rosh Yeshiva of Pumbedisa. Maybe there was somebody before him. I don't know. But Rav Yehuda is mamish student of Rav and Shmuel from the Alter generation. And then Rav Yosef and Rabba were students of Rav Yehuda. And then Abaye was students of Rabba and Rav Yosef. Abaye and Rava were students of Rabba and Rav Yosef. Now, Rabba and Rav Yosef were both Rosh Yeshiva after Rav Yehuda, as we know from the last half of Masech the Brachas, that after Rav Yehuda came Rabba, and after Rabba came Rav Yosef, and then after Rav Yosef, I believe Abaye was the Rosh Yeshiva. So Kilu, Abaye was not directly connected to Rav Yehuda. There's Rabba and Rav Yosef in between over there. But very, very, very interesting that already in this story you see Rav Yehuda and Abaye in the same story. So I guess Abaye must have been young, I imagine, at the time. But very, very, very interesting. You see that there was overlap over there. Very, very interesting stuff. So lo azal shadale le Abaye. So Rav Yitzchak did not follow his father's directions, and instead he sent Abaye to go for him. Kiyasa Abaye Omerle. Heichi Omar. So then, later on, when Rav Yitzchak saw Abaye, he said, no, so Abaye, tell me what happened. So Amr, I'm sorry, Hechi Amr. So Amr so Abaye responds to Yitzchak, Baruch Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol. Ula, when he made Havdala, all he said was Baruch Hamavda Ben Kodesh L'chol. That's it. Amr V'Sula. Oh, Rava said, oh no, maybe Kilu. I'm sorry. Amr Baruch Hamavda Ben Kodesh L'chol. Amr V'Sula. That's it. Also the Kamid Avua. So now Rav Yitzchak came to his father Rav Yehuda. Amr Hechi Amr. So now Rav Yehuda says to Rav Yitzchak, no, so how was it? I sent you with some fruits to go to Ula, so you could hear how he says Havdala. How did it go? So Amr Analo Azli. So Rav Yitzchak was honest at least. He says, look, I didn't go. I sent Abaye. And Abaye told me, and Abaye told me that what Ula did was he said, Amavdu Mikodesh L'chol, and that was it. Omerle, Rav Yehuda says to his son Rav Yitzchak, Rav Vanusei Demar, Visarusei Demar, Garmale Lemar, Delotema Shmaite Mipume. Oh. So says Rav Yehuda to his son Rav Yitzchak, because of your haughtiness, look what ended up happening. You didn't get to hear and learn directly from somebody as great as Ula, because instead you vanquished, I think is that a word, the opportunity and sent somebody else in your stead. Meisve, we now have a kasha on Ula. Kol brachas kula, and all brachas poseach bebaruch v'chosim bebaruch. So they start with baruch and they end with baruch. What's an example? Who can give me an example of this? I don't know. Asher Yotzer. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher Yotzer sa'adam v'chochma da and then at the end Baruch atah Hashem roifei chabos u'mafti la'asos. So chutz mi birkas mitzvos, with the exception of a bracha on a mitzvah, let's say for example, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kedashanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al mikra megillah. So it's just one bracha. Birkas haperes, as well as bracha on fruits. For example, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam bo priya eitz. Uvarcha smucha lechaverta. Oh, you guys remember this brisa from brachas? Of course. A bracha that is close to the next one. For example, in Shmona Esrei, right? Let's take the bracha of Atachon Yudad Das. Melamed le'enon shbina chonunu meitcha chachma bina v'das baruch atah Hashem chonin adas. Didn't start with baruch, it just started with Atachonin. But because it's next to the bracha that's before it, it just creates like a chain, like a sort of chain, and it doesn't have to start with the baruch, it only ends with baruch. Uvracha achrona sheb'Kriyas Shema, as well as the last bracha in Kriyas Shema. Okay, sheish men posech kilu ve'emuna kozos, or let's say v'yatziv. So it doesn't start with a bracha. Now yesh men sheish men posech b'baruch ve'en chosim b'baruch ve'yesh men shechosim b'baruch ve'en posech b'baruch. Those of them that start with the baruch and don't end with the baruch, such as birkas haperus or birkas hamitzvah. And Veishmen Shechosim Baruch and Posech Baruch, and those that end with a bracha but don't start with a bracha, such as in Shmona Esrei. Fine. Vatov V'Ameitiv Posech Baruch Ve'enu Chosim Baruch. And then another interesting example is Hatov V'Ameitiv at the end of benching. The first three brachas of benching are bracha Smucha L'Chaverta, and then followed by Hatov V'Ameitiv, which is a separate bracha. It's Midor Abanon that they made for the Arugei Beitar, and also there we say it's all just one big shevach. So it just starts with the bracha. And that's it. There's no bracha at the end. Kasha le'ula. So now this is a question on ula. How come it's a question on ula? Because how come he's just saying Baruch Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol? Shouldn't it have to start and end with a bracha? So Amalach Ula will respond to you. Hanami kivirkas hamitzvos damya. This is similar to the birkas hamitzvos. Birkas hamitzvos my taima mishum dodahi hanami odahi. The reason why birkas hamitzvos you don't, right? It's just one bracha. It's because it's just one big hodah. Thank you. So here also, Baruch Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol, it's one hodah. It's just one thanks, and therefore, interesting that it's considered a hodah, but it doesn't change topics or anything like that, and therefore it could just be one bracha. Says Ula. Well, friends, that was daf Kuf Dalet of Masechta Pesachim, another great daf. We learned about Havdala, the bracha that you make at the end. We saw a machlokus between Rav and Shmuel, whether it's Mekadesh Yisrael or is it Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol. We pass like Shmuel that it's Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol. And we also hold like Rabbi Lazar in the name of Rabbi Oshaya that we say 3 types of descriptors of Havdalos, Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol, Benor L'choshech, B'Nisrael L'Amim. We then say Ben Yom HaShvi L'Shesh Esimei Ma'aseh, which is Me'ein L'Chasima, which is similar to Hamavda Mikodesh L'chol. Very, very interesting stuff. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed Daf Kuf Daled, as I'm sure you did. And have a great day, a great Shabbos, a great everything. Peace out, friends.